Big news this morning is that Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun, one of my least favorite people on earth who has not yet been convicted of a crime, is going to be stepping down at the end of 2024 because he's not very good at leading the company.
Yeah.
Good. Good riddance.
And several other high-level executives out as well. So chairman of the board, Larry Kellner, is resigning. Stan Deal, who's the president and CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, will be leaving the company effective immediately. Calhoun, just, quick background here. He was the former chairman of the board, if I'm not mistaken.
Before he took over as CEO, yes.
What was the name of the guy running it during the crashes?
Muhlenberg.
Yeah, right. Muhlenberg was out. Chairman of the board stepped in. Now former chairman of the board, current CEO David Calhoun on the way out. We do not have, unless there's been announcements in the last 2 hours, because this was announced right around 8 a.m. today, we do not have any sense of who will be taking over that role, though the CEO job at Boeing Commercial Airplanes, which is the division within there that Stan Deal is leaving, is going to be replaced by Stephanie Pope. Stephanie Pope has spent 3 decades at Boeing, most recently as CFO of commercial airplanes and a few other units previously, which, if that's any insinuation as to where they will go with other top spots, to me that's just a continuation of what they've done over the last several decades, which has been top leadership is finance, iBanking, that organization, rather than the engineering structure that many have criticized Boeing for saying engineers need to be leading this company if they're going to take a real focus on safety.
And the other piece, remember, you can't really go outside of the Boeing company to try to find someone to, run the thing, because they're the only company in the country that makes commercial airplanes. There is no one else. If you want someone else from a commercial airline manufacturer, you've got to either go to grab someone from Airbus, which, again, just optically, the idea of, hey, we're going to bring someone from Europe in to run, Boeing, I could see how that would meet with some resistance in terms of, just optically it doesn't seem great. Likewise, you could also say, hey, Embraer, which, by the way, the story of them is just one of my favorites. You get this, airplane manufacturer in Brazil who happens to be, again, one of 3 commercial jetliner manufacturers in the world, and they've carved out this great niche in, the regional jet space. But are you going to go and grab someone from Brazil to come in and take over? Again, kind of unlikely, just because you've got in both those examples, beyond just the idea that, hey, Boeing is this crown jewel of American aviation, and oh gee, we can't find an American to run it because we're not good at it anymore. Like, the embarrassment of that. There's also really different cultures in both of those areas in terms of how are you going to actually know how to get things done based on how Boeing is built, because it's very, very different from each of those areas.
There are completely different structures. I have no idea the likelihood or usefulness of one of those competitors coming into being a leadership role at one of these, but it would seem to me to be the appropriate time for Boeing to be approaching this issue with the right sense of humility. And perhaps that would be some sign of it, because I don't know that Boeing has any right to be prideful about who is leading this company next.
You can't. Again, I say this as someone who, I didn't grow up wanting to work at Boeing because I wasn't that wasn't me. I wanted to be cooler than that. I wanted to go to freaking space, but aviation has always been something that I've been kind of hooked on. But I always looked at Boeing and was like, oh my goodness, the 747. And then when they came out with the 777, I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And now you look at it and it's like, I don't know, you're kind of embarrassed by how the last decade has gone for them in terms of how a lot of this is played out. And, people forget, look, whenever you're doing new things and pushing the envelope, yes, you run into problems, but that's not really what we're talking about here.
Right, Boeing didn't push the envelope on anything. If anything, they tried to play it safe.
This is a door plug that, they've existed for decades, and you didn't put it together properly. It's not like, hey, we got this great new technology, and we're going to have some hiccups with it.
It's going to make planes lighter, more fuel efficient, and they're going to have a larger capacity. None of those things were what caused this issue here. And in fact, the issues with the MCAS system on the other ones seemingly was more of an issue of, wow, we really don't want to.
We don't want to do a clean sheet
We don't
design.
want to do a completely new innovative design. We want to just try and utilize the previous designs that are working so that we don't have to retrain pilots. It seems to be the opposite issue.
So that's what is going on with Dave Calhoun. He is going to, again, be finishing up the year, and then someone else is going to be taking over for him. We don't know who yet, but I would imagine we'll have some clarity on that. I would guess by Boeing's next earnings report. That would be, you don't want to really go multiple earnings reports without having a successor CEO named. So, you'd like to have that person in place there.
I think this is an important moment because, look, I'm not a Boeing shareholder. I don't know anybody on the board. But as an investor, I would be wanting a complete directional change on this. And so, Calhoun was on the board of Boeing before he took over as CEO. If that's the direction that this goes, then that would, to me, be a tremendous disappointment.
The problem is, where do you go?
I would at least want to see a heavy engineering background, somebody from some sort of regulatory and safety department, although I'm given the track record there, I'm not sure how that looks optically, but you're dealing fundamentally with safety and quality issues here. And so another finance head would be disappointing to me.
Trying to think of who else, where else you could go. So you got Boeing. Like, if you're trying to look outside of Boeing.
I guess one of the large military defense companies that do military aircraft, but that's...
There's literally no one else. I mean, these are the 10 biggest commercial airplane manufacturers in the world. Boeing, Airbus, Embraer, we already covered those. You've got Bombardier, who they literally had to not give up, but they were trying to make this C-Series jet that they ended up having to basically give the whole project to Airbus because they couldn't figure out how to make it work. So they gave it to them in order to manufacture. Comac, who is the Chinese upstart manufacturer, you can't even really call them that anymore because they've been trying to make commercial planes for 20 years and can't figure it out. They finally say they have one. They've made 3 of them, literally. So there's not much there. On top of that, you're not really going to have someone who heads up the Chinese version of Boeing coming in to take over Boeing. I think there'd be some national security concerns there. Mitsubishi Aircraft Corporation didn't even know that they made planes.
No.
Wait, it's because they don't yet. They're trying to come out with a regional jet.
Got it.
Not going to be them. UAC, Russian aircraft manufacturer, seems a little bit of a stretch given, the sanctions that are in place on much of Russian industry these days. Aviastar SP, Russian manufacturer of the Tupolev 204, probably a non-starter once again. Gips Aero, an Australian producer of aircraft founded in 1977. They make the piston-engined G8 seating 8 passengers.
Honestly, I think if you were trying to do this, the only places that I think you can source from are internally on some sort of engineering and safety side of things, or externally from somebody who previously ran one of the regulators that oversaw Boeing. I think if you're trying to send a true message of safety, those are the only places I can think of to recruit someone from.
I guess, look, so Bombardier does have a business jet area, business jet segment. They make private planes and things like that. Okay, you can look in that direction, I guess, but man, there's just not that much out there, and this is the problem that I've been saying over and over.
Problem with monopolies?
It's, hey, if your product doesn't work the way it's supposed to, where else are you going to go? And it's a problem entirely of our own making because we allowed so much consolidation in the aviation space.